Jelly Trumpet.
So this is our bonus track with Lou Wallace, drama teacher, actor and director. So you said in our interview, 12 questions in 12 minutes, your heroine, Emma Rice, and one of the things Emma Rice is responsible for when she was at knee high, sadly defunct, that hurt a lot of us that knee high is no more, because it's one of the most joyous experiences I've ever had when I was at the Arvin Foundation, which is a foundation, a charity that helps writers. And we went down to Barton and performed in a barn with Mike Shepherd. And it was just the most wonderful experience. And then I came and I auditioned for your Red Shoes. And that was, for me, the most joyous time I've had as a performer. Because it was like knee high. It was very sort of family. We created a family in that company, and everyone in the company was just a delight to be with. And we started from essentially, wasn't there like 20 pages or something? And then you went off.
Yeah, it took just to read the story, which is essentially a beautifully written adaptation of the fairy tale. But to read it took us maybe 18 minutes, I think. And then we created about an hour and 15 plus a pre-show that was in the bar and stuff. So for me as well, that was when we're talking about kind of being genuinely creative, and again thinking back to working with young people, that kind of so I'm quite near the beginning of rehearsing a show at school at the moment with 78 teenagers. It's not all teenagers, some of them are younger than that, actually. That sense of jumping into the unknown, which it was, because you lot had to trust me, and I had to trust everyone else that we would create, and the barn had to trust that we would create something meaningful and something that was a piece of performance and that people would enjoy watching, and would be of a high quality, and not really knowing, because I'd always wanted to work in a much more kind of devising, freer, organic way, and I haven't really been able to do that properly. So I kind of watch my students do devising, which is what we call one of the things they have to do for exams, where essentially you start with a little stimulus, which could be the story of the Red Shoes, and you have to create a piece. But when you're working, particularly, in amateur theatre around here, theatres are unlikely to kind of say, yeah, I'll give you £2,000, you can do what you like. They want something more formal, which I understand. So it took quite a lot of persuading for the barn to let us do this in the first place. And then, as you know, a huge amount of persuading for Knee High to let us do it. And I do remember at the beginning thinking, oh gosh, right, better actually do something good then. Now I've done this. But yeah, it was really exhilarating, terrifying, and kind of deeply joyful to know that in every rehearsal we were kind of inventing something all the time. So I never came to a rehearsal thinking I don't know what we're going to do today, but I was never sure what the right end point was going to be. And we were asking people to really work outside their comfort zone. And I think for lots of professional actors that would be very scary. Lots of people feel happier with the structure of a script and stage directions and something that they can really see at the beginning. And that I had no idea what we were going to come up with.
Really? You didn't have
genuinely
of it all.
I had a kind of a visual picture in terms of the design. But things like the music, the movement, the kind of interaction, it kind of developed, but it had to develop and it had to be made by the people that were in the room. So we had to do things that we could do, and you know,
you created
meant something to us.
a lot of trust. You know, that's, I think,
Completely.
It was like a big playpen where we can do
Yeah.
stuff we want. And we'll do that, and we're interacting. And what I always liked when I did physical theatre, when I trained in physical theatre, I always enjoyed chorus work, you know, where you share a stage with people and you're not sure what's going to happen, but you're working together. And so there were bits at the beginning where we were all looking at Jude coming in, and everything, and you could see everyone was like attending each other and being a whole as a chorus, and that I think is very difficult to achieve. And the atmosphere that you created from that, you know, the pre-show bit, which was lovely, etc., but walking on stage with my case, and I put it on Facebook soon afterwards, my shopping list for all the props that I needed, which included 4 rabbits, a suitcase, a bowler hat, a bucket, and a cloth. And I was never about 12 things, and sort of like, oh, I've got to get this always right. I've got to place this here, etc., like that. And it was such. At what point did you think this really works? Because it was very, very well received.
I think when we got onto the stage, and Rosemary had kind of created this bizarre world that was kind of vaguely an old theatre, but also kind of all kinds of other things around, and it felt like that was a kind of home, I suppose. And we were quite lucky to have quite a long time on the stage. And then you kind of, I never thought that it wouldn't work, if I'm honest. Right. I thought if we get the right people and if we create the right environment and we keep trusting in what we're doing, it will work. I think I was quite maybe blown away by how well it worked. And it's definitely the thing that I'm proudest of that I've done recently in a long time, I think, because I think it's the kind of theatre that I want to make.
Yeah.
And I know it was good. And sometimes you kind of you don't trust yourself to be able to say that. You know, you get very British about it and say, but I was like, no, that was good.
Going back just to pick up on Emma Rice, am I right in thinking her theatre company's Wise Children now?
Yes.
So are there any, because of the loss of Mihai hit us all so hard, really, I mean, we've got Emma Rice and Wise Children. Are there any other theatre companies in that sort of realm that you know of that you could recommend?
I really enjoy the whole immersive style. Yeah. So the kind of Punch Drunk, where I guess in a way it goes one stage further, doesn't it? So the piece is all around you. So you might be in a warehouse and you can kind of choose which bit of the story you follow. I think that's really exciting. And that's even, I suppose, in a small way, coming into some of the West End stuff with Moulin Rouge and Cabaret, where you can kind of be on the stage or have a kind of pre-show thing with actors. My students are really switched on, really excited by stuff like Punch Drunk. They love the whole Wise Children experience. Shall I tell you my MRI story?
Please do tell me about fangirling Rice.
Fangirling, it was awful. So we went to see one of the previews of Wise Children. Yeah, it must have been Wise Children. Just as we were starting to rehearse Red Shoes. Mm-hmm. We went to the Old Vic with Rob and Carol, who had basically, I don't know what she'd done.
We don't know.
Bribed somebody to, to get the rights. Anyway, and we went, and it was, beautiful. I wept for the last 10 minutes of the show. I just thought it was amazing. Came out and had a glass of champagne, which may have been my mistake.
Oh dear.
And then Rob said, look, she's over there. That's Emma Rice. And Carol was like, that's Emma Rice. Let's go and tell her we're doing Red Shoes. No. I was like, no, I can't possibly. And Rob said, no, that is Emma Rice. Like, you know, this is your opportunity to meet your hero. Go and say, she's not going to say bugger off, is she? She's gonna be pleased to talk to you. So I kind of went over there with my glass of champagne, and I was still crying and being completely pathetic. And I was like, oh, that was, you know, that I'm so excited to meet you. That was just a beautiful show. You know, I'm still crying, and I kind of started to blubber, and then I was saying, you know, and we're doing the red shoes, and she was, what do you mean? What do you mean you're doing the red shoes? I was like, oh, we're doing the red shoes, and it would be lovely if you came to see it, and thank you for your work, and then, you know, Rob just kind of hoiked me out, and it was very embarrassing. And then, even more embarrassing, I then decided to write to her.
Oh.
So I got my Minac notepad out, and I wrote her this. The first part of the letter was an apology for being so embarrassing. You might remember this really crazy woman who was a bit startled, who was crying in front of you.
Champagne,
and then I kind of gave all the information about the show. And then I did the really kiddish thing where you run out of paper. And then you write all the way around the outside at the back of your note. And really shockingly, she never replied.
Oh dear, that's a shame. I thought we were going to get, you know, some completion there.
No, it still hasn't happened.
Well, maybe.
But she's still my hero.
Yeah, quite rightly. So I must go and check out some more theatre. I've been quite isolated because of things, you know, circumstances. Well, I think we come to a lovely ending to our chat. Perfect. So I'd like to thank you, Lou, drama teacher, actor and director, for being on Jelly Trumpet. So thank you very much.
Thank you.